Welcome to Agape Freedom Sports. My name is Jeric Yurkanin. We are on to week 6 for this upcoming weekend. We are so excited. There's some very good games coming up this weekend. And we're excited to talk about them and give you my picks. I am 48-14 with my record for my picks. I got 48 picks right and 14 wrong um, in the last 5 weeks. So it's pretty awesome, and I'm thrilled that I'm doing okay. But before we get started, let's bring on your only Sara Renee. She will be doing the top 7 countdown. There's been some changes and shifting in a top 7 countdown this week, so she will bring it to you.
Hello, and welcome to the Hail Mary Show with the Agape Freedom Sports Podcast. My name is Sara Renee X, here to give you the top 7 countdown for the Lackawanna Football Conference. Starting with number 7, we have Scranton. At number 6, we have Mid-Valley. Number 5, Lackawanna Trail. Number 4, Valley View. Number 3, Riverside. Number 2, Scranton Prep. And number 1, we've got Western Wayne predicted to win. And I'm going to hand you guys on over to Jeric.
Thank you, Sara Renee X, for doing the top 7 countdown. Our first game we have this week that we're going to be talking about is Lackawanna Chair Lions and the Old Forge Blue Devils. Lackawanna Chair is coming off a big win from last week, a 26-14 win over an undefeated Mid-Valley Spartan team. The Spartans were fierce with the defense the first 4 weeks of the season, but Lackawanna Trail beat them. Lackawanna Trail was single A and the Spartans is triple A. So that was a good win for Lackawanna Trail, a big win. And I got that pick wrong. I picked Mid-Valley to win. But apparently, I am now a true believer of Lackawanna Trail. They're a very good team. They're not rebuilding. They're replacing. They replaced players. That makes sense. So what does Lackawanna Trail offer? What does their status looks like? Well, Lackawanna Trail rush offense. They have 1,156 yards rushing this season. That's an average of 231 yards per game. Their pass offense, they only have 151 yards passing, and that's about 30.2 yards per game. So as we see, Lackawanna Trail is a rushing team, a running team. They live and die on their running game this year. They have scored on average of 27 points per game, which comes to about 136 points they have. Some of their scores is first game of the season, they beat Tunkhannock 41-7. Then they lost to Western Wayne 28-7. No shame. Western Wayne's undefeated. It's a real deal and very good in the AAA. Lackawanna Trail beat Berwick 35-0, and Berwick is AAA. And this thing is wrong. Let me see. No, it's right. 35-0, they beat Berwick. Lackawanna Trail beat Dunmore 28-7. And they lost to Mid-Valley last week. No, they beat Mid-Valley last week. Sorry. The Lackawanna Trail beat Mid-Valley last week. And that was a good win for them. Now, the Lackawanna Trail defense, the rush defense, they've given up 609 yards this season. That's an average of 121.8 yards per game. That's not too bad. That really isn't bad, to be honest. I mean, because a lot of teams run the ball more than they pass. Lackawanna Trail's pass defense, they give up 409 yards, 81 yards per game. That's not too bad either. How about their defense? how much points have they giving up per game? 11.2. And they're only giving up a total of 56 points this season. So those are some good stats for the Lackawanna Chair Lions. Their leading rusher is Isaac Ryan. Isaac Ryan has 489 yards rushing on 58 carries, and he has 9 rushing touchdowns. And he has 2 receptions for 9 yards. And the second leading rusher, which again, it's a 2-man workhorse in the backfield, is Demetrius Douglas, who's a powerful back and finds the holes quick. He has 428 yards rushing on 51 carries, and he has 7 rushing touchdowns. The quarterback, Tyler Jervis, has 113 yards rushing on 30 carries, and he only has 119 yards passing. Not too good, but, as playoffs approach, you might want to get the passing game going a little bit more, and practice it, because you might face a team that has a very good run defense, and you won't be getting much yards facing them. So I think Lackawanna Chair needs to throw up the ball a little bit more, especially if they're up by a lot. If they're playing a team and they're up by 34, 45 points, I think it's time to put the ball in the air, get some practice for playoffs, and be ready. I think that's what they definitely should do. Okay, what does Old Forge look like? Well, Old Forge rush offense, they only have 605 yards rushing this season, and that's about 121 yards per game. The pass offense, 848 yards, 169 yards per game. They're more of a passing team, it seems, than rushing, but they're kind of equal. Their offense scored 148 points this year. Now, when looking at the thing, they scored 42 points against Hanover and 46 points against Old Forge. Not Old Forge, Dunmore. What am I saying? So Old Forge scored 46 points against Dunmore, and they scored 42 points against Hanover. So that's 2 games out of 3 that they scored a lot of points, but they're averaging about 29 yards per game. Now the rush defense, 1,170 yards they're giving up on the ground, and that's 234 yards per game. Now, as we just shared, Lackawanna Trail, their bread and butter is running the ball, and they do it very good, and they have 2 very good running backs. So I think Lackawanna Trail is going to give Old Forge a bit of a problem this coming weekend. Now Old Forge pass defense, 393 yards, 78 yards per game. That's about average. Not too bad. But again, it depends who they're playing and how often they pass the ball. And a lot of teams don't pass the ball too much. So in this area, some do, some don't. Now, how much points have the defense giving up? 34.2 points per game. So that's not good. Not at all. So Old Forge, they won week 1, 28-27. Actually, I'm not going to go over the scores. I know I was going up, but I think you guys know the scores. I did the first team. But what does their stats look like? Well, their leading rusher is Kale Krasnowski. He has 368 yards rushing on 69 carries and 2 touchdowns. Now, he's a receiving back. He has 13 catches for 205 yards receiving, Kale Krasnowski. And then wide receiver, Frank Pirro has 10 catches for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns. Another wide receiver, Chris Ramis, has 278 yards receiving and on 22 catches and 3 touchdowns. But those are your main stats for Old Forge. Not for passing. Looks like DJ DiMatteo, I can't say his name. I apologize. I used to be able to say it. Has 828 yards passing. So Old Forge quarterback TJ, has a pretty good arm. But with that said, I don't think that's going to be good enough to beat a very good Lackawanna Chero team. Very good. I mean, a Chero team who has a good pass defense and a very good run defense. And a team that can score quick and can run the ball very well with 2 very good running backs. So I'm going with Lackawanna Chero to win this game. 36-20. Lackawanna Chero to win by 16. So Lackawanna Chero 36, Old Forge 20, and by 16. These are going to be just quick picks right here. I picked Carbon Area 34, Montrose 12. Carbon Area to win by 22 against Montrose. Holy Cross 27, Holy Redeemer 15. I pick Holy Cross to win by 12. Okay, next up we have the Dunmore Bucks versus Lakeland Chiefs. It's going to be up at the Lakeland Stadium, Chapton Lake, the game's being played at, and I'm going to be at that game. That's our game of the week. So I'll be there at the game, Lakeland and Dunmore game this Friday. So what does Lakeland's stats look like? Well, Lakeland's rush offense has a total of 534 yards. That's 106 yards per game. That's not too good. Lakeland's pass offense, 493 yards and 98 yards per game. That's not really that good either. Lakeland's Lakeland's points per game, they scored a total of 136. That's not too bad. That's 27 points per game. So that's pretty decent. Now Lakeland's rush defense is 988 yards they're giving up, and that's 197 yards per game. That's not too good. But with them playing the Dunmore, you're gonna see, how I might favor Lakeland. Lakeland's pass defense, 384 yards they're giving up, 76 yards per game. That's not too bad, but again, depends on who's passing. Since most teams are running games. Now Lakeland's it's giving up 26.8 points per game. That's 134 points this year they've given up. Lakeland's coming off a 16-6 loss to Susquehanna last week. With their stats, their leading rusher is Caden Kuzo. He has 273 yards rushing on 49 carries, and he has 4 touchdowns. And he has 56 yards receiving on 4 receptions. And their leading receiver is Chase Rosegrants. He has 280 yards receiving on 24 receptions. He's a pretty good wide receiver, and he's only a sophomore, so he's going to get even better. And then David Nanowitz is returning next year. He's going to be a senior, the quarterback. So I expect Lakeland to be more competitive next year. So that's just about the main stats. Lakeland's defense, Ain't too bad. I mean, they played some good teams, but now onto your Dunmore Bucks. So your Dunmore Bucks, their rush offense is that 1,049, and that's 209 yards per game rushing they average, and that's pretty good. Now their pass offense, 290 yards, that's 58 yards per game. That's not too good. Now they have scored 16.2 points per game, total of 81 points this season. Now Dunmore's rush defense, 932 yards, 186 yards per game. Their pass defense, 364 yards, 72.8 yards per game. And Dunmore's has given up 20.1 points per game, 121 points. Now, as I said, there may be a part that Dunmore looks to be favored. But as you look at some of these stats and what Lakeland has done and what Dunmore has done and the teams they played, I'm going to be going with Lakeland. My pick is Lakeland 20, Dunmore 14. Lakeland by 6. So Lakeland 20, Dunmore by 14, Lakeland by 6. Our next game is Western Wayne and Honesdale. Honesdale is coming off a 36-20 loss to Valley View. They're on a 3-game losing streak, Honesdale. They started out the season pretty decent, but now they're struggling. And now they have another good team to play. It's the Western Wayne Wildcats, which is our number 1 team in our top 7 countdown. And Western Wayne's coming off a 52-14 win over Old Forge. I mean, look at these scores. First game of the season, Western Wayne beat Susquehanna 42-14. Week 2, Western Wayne beat Lackawanna Trail 28-7. Week 3, Western Wayne beat a good Wyoming area team 34-23. Week 4, Western Wayne beat Crestwood 21-0, and then they beat Old Forge last week 52-14. We knew that Western Wayne was going to be real and one of the top teams in the area, and they're finally showing it. So let's get to some stats. So the Western Wayne rush offense has 1,090 yards this season. That's an average of 218 yards per game, which is very good compared to other teams. Western Wayne pass offense, 297 yards, which is 59.4 yards per game. So 297 yards, 59.4 yards per game. Not too good. But obviously the bread and butter is running the ball. That's what they do well. Western Wayne had scored 177 points this season. That's 35.4 points per game. That's a very good offense right there. On defense, they only given up 780 yards, which is 156.4 yards per game. That's still not too bad. I mean, is what it is. Western Wayne's pass defense, 409 yards, and that's 81.8 yards per game, which is average. Now, Western Wayne is only giving up 58 points this year. That's 11.6 points per game. Now, they are a very good team. The top rusher is Josh Vinton. He has 850 yards rushing on 104 carries, 11 rush touchdowns, and he has 2 receiving. He caught the ball twice for 66 yards. And it looks like the top wide receiver is Sean Owens. He has 16 catches for 341 yards. me see. Yeah, these stats doesn't seem to be too right, but he's a top wide receiver, where I got the stats from, so it must be a mistake, an error somewhere. But anyways, Sean Owens is Western Wayne's top wide receiver. So Western Wayne's a very good team. It's safe to say they're probably going to go undefeated this year. But they're playing Honesdale, who's on a 3-game losing streak. Honesdale rush offense 1,027, and that's 205 yards rushing per game. That's pretty good. Honesdale's pass offense 472 yards. That's 94.4 yards per game. And Honesdale scored 116 points this year, and that's 23 points per game. Honesdale's rush defense 893. That's 178.6 yards per game. Honesdale's pass defense 783. That's 156.6 yards per game. Honesdale is giving up 21.4 points per game. That's 107 points this year. Honesdale Hornets are struggling defensively and offensively, and now they have to play a very good very good Western Wayne team. As we said, Western Wayne's the top team and one of the top teams in the area, along with Scranton Prep. So Honesdale's main rusher is Mason Avery. He has 544 yards rushing on 62 carries. He started off the season very good, and then it kind of went downhill a little bit. Their leading receivers, Gabe Duda. He has 12 catches for 178 yards, and he has 22 rushes for 114 yards. Both things, catching and running. Colin Keese has 8 catches for 137 yards. That's pretty good. And Aiden Collins, the quarterback, has 200 yards rushing out of 51 carries, and he has 472 yards passing. And he's 34 for 64, and he has 3 touchdown passes, Aiden Collins. But with that said, of course, I'm picking Western Wayne to win this game. Western Wayne 40, Honesdale Hornets 20. So I'll pick Western Wayne to win by 20 against the Honesdale Hornets. So it's going to be a very good, good game. It could be at least the first half. Our next game is Susquehanna at Riverside. Susquehanna is playing Riverside. Susquehanna has a 4-1 record. Their only loss actually is to Western Wayne in week 1. They're coming off confident, but Western Wayne has a high power offense. No, Western Wayne, Riverside has a high power offense. So it's going to be challenging for Susquehanna to try to beat them. They're going to have to be perfect and have their best game to beat Riverside. So Susquehanna's rush offense is 1,166 yards rushing on the season, and that's 233 yards per game. That's pretty good. That's very good, actually. Susquehanna offense, 423 yards, 84.6 yards per game, all about average. They've scored 137 points this year. That's 27.4 points per game. So Susquehanna's rush defense, 487 yards, and that's 97.4 yards per game. That's pretty good. Susquehanna's pass defense, 391 yards per game. That's 78.2 yards per game. Susquehanna has given up 89 points this year, 17.8 points per game. So Susquehanna in a bad team. They're led by running back William Marcy. He has 65 carries for 399 yards on 5 touchdowns. And then Brody Ace, 13 carries on 56 yards. And then their quarterback, who seems to be a leading rusher, and he's only a sophomore. He's good, and he's only a sophomore, so he has 2 more years. It's Weston Yurkanin, 63 rushing attempts for 612 yards, and he has 328 yards passing, so he could do it all. He's a very good quarterback. So let's get to Riverside stats. Riverside's rush offense, 844 yards, 168.8 yards per game. Their pass offense, 972 yards. That's 194 yards per game. And have scored 216 points this year. And that's 43.2 points per game. So they're a very good team. Riverside's rush defense is 510 yards, 102 yards per game. Riverside's pass defense, 424. That's 84.2 yards per game. Riverside's that's giving up 8.2 points per game. So yeah, they're a very good team defensively, and they have a good offense. So this is going to be a challenge to Susquehanna. Susquehanna is going to have to be on their A game, as I mentioned, and they have to have one of their best games to try to beat this Riverside team. They're going to be I think if Susquehanna could stop their passing game a little bit, and have a good pass defense in that game, I think they have a much better chance to winning the game, because passing seems to be Riverside's bread and butter. So we're going to see what happens. But with that said, my pick is Riverside 36, Susquehanna 20, and Riverside by 16. So I pick Riverside 36, Susquehanna 20, Riverside by 16. I don't think Susquehanna is going to be able to stop maybe the pass defense, maybe a little bit. I think it's going to be a good game in the first half. I think Susquehanna will hold its own in the first half, but I think the second half, I can imagine and see Riverside switching some things up and pulling away. So again, Riverside wins by 16. Some stats I forgot to go over is the quarterback, Riverside's quarterback, Chase Dodonio, has 36 rushing attempts for 212 yards, and he's 47 for 82, and has 890 yards passing, 11 touchdown passes. And the leading rusher is Richie Kostoff. Well, he's one of them. 26 carries on 160 yards, and then the action running back, I can't even say his name, Houghton J. Scott, 27 attempts for 165 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. The leading receiver is Braden Rose, 12 catches for 234 yards. And then a couple other receivers like Jeric Jackson, 6 catches for 130, 4 touchdowns, and then Brady Bavonis has 2 catches for 125 yards. So yeah, Riverside's stats, which I forgot to do. The quarterback Chase Dodonio has 36 rushing attempts for 212 yards, and he's 47 for 82 passing, 890 yards. So that's that. So on to our next game, Wallenpaupack and Scranton Prep. Scranton Prep is one of the top teams in the area. I think Wallenpaupack's going to have a lot of trouble with Scranton Prep. So what does Wallenpaupack have? Well, their rush offense, 807 yards. That's 161 yards per game. Their pass offense, 511 yards. That's 102 yards per game. They've scored 95 points this year. That's 19 points per game. Their rush defense, 574 yards. That's 114.8 yards per game. That's pretty good. Their pass defense, 329 for 65 yards per game. That's pretty good as well. They did play some teams that could pass the ball. They've given up 95 points this year. That's 19 points per game. I mean, Walden Paulback is coming off a 31-14 loss to Delaware Valley. But some of the stats on the season, their leading rusher is Logan Caruso, 64 carries, 322 yards, 4 touchdowns. And their next leading rusher is Drew Kizadal, who happens to be the quarterback as well. 49 rushing attempts for 172 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Drew is 31 for 68 and 511 yards passing for 3 touchdowns. Not bad as well. It was bad. You know. Now on to the Scranton Prep. Scranton Prep's coming off a 43-0 win over a 4-0 Scranton team. Scranton was undefeated, and it was a good team. And Prep beat them 43-0. Kind of shows you how good Prep could be. So their leading rusher is Will McPartland, 70 carries for 462 yards, 8 rushing touchdowns. Will also has 7 receptions for 71 yards. The next rusher, second leading rusher, is Javon Dickey, 23 rushing attempts for 242 yards, 2 touchdowns. And he has 12 receptions for 135 yards. So they have running backs who can run out and catch very well. So they have weapons everywhere. The Scranton Prep Cavaliers. And actually, their second leading rusher wasn't Javon Dickey. He's the third leading rusher. The second leading rusher is the quarterback, Lewis Paris. He has 58 rushing attempts for 399 yards, 5 touchdowns. And he could also pass the ball. He has 531 yards passing. He's 30 for 52. And so he's a pretty good quarterback. He could do it all. So yeah. So Prep, the stats. Prep's rush offense, 1,254 yards. That's 250 yards per game. It's very, very good. Prep's pass offense, 561 yards, 112 yards per game. Prep has scored 155 points this year. That's 31 points per game. Prep's rush defense, 457. That's 91.4 yards per game. Prep's pass defense, 767 and 153 yards per game. And Prep is giving up 17.4 points per game and total of 87 points. Their defense has Prep's defense has 2 shutouts, one against Valley View and one against Scranton. And remember, Prep played some very good teams. They went out of state and played some teams, and that's where the one loss came from. But they also won one out of state. So they're a very good team, Prep. They could pass, they could run. Their defense is solid. I'm going with Scranton Prep to win this game. Scranton Prep 38 and Walden Paulback 13. I picked Prep to win by 25. So Scranton Prep 38, Walden Paulback 13, and Scranton Prep by 25 to win. The next one is West Scranton versus Mid Valley. West Scranton's rush offense, 522 yards. That's 104 yards per game. West Scranton's pass offense, 290 yards, 58 yards per game. West Scranton's has scored 42 points this year, and that's 8.4 points per game. West Scranton's rush defense, 772 yards, 154 yards they're giving up. West Scranton's pass defense, 729 yards. That's 145.8 yards per game. West Scranton's that's giving up 26 points per game, 132 total points. West Scranton is struggling this year. I mean, they played a good game against Old Forge, and after that, it's been a struggle. Their leading rusher is Darron Groves. He has 66 rushing attempts for 343 yards and 3 touchdowns. And the second leading rusher is Shamir Lyon, 16 rushing attempts for 74 yards. And they have 185 yards passing by Caden Burdini. Randy. I can't even say his last name. I'm sorry for mispronouncing it. The Mid-Valley Spartans. Now, they're coming off a 26-14 loss to a good Lackawanna Trail team. Mid-Valley, by the stats, their rush offense, 1,076, and that's 215 yards per game. Their Mid-Valley pass offense, 502 yards, 100 yards per game. Mid-Valley's has scored 143 points this year, and that's 28.6 points per game. Mid-Valley's rush defense has given up 434 yards rushing, and that's 86 yards per game. Mid-Valley pass defense, 340, that's 68 points per game. And Mid-Valley is giving up 13 points per game, that's 65 points. Nevertheless, when we look at West Scranton, they scored 42 points this year, and 27 of those points came against Old Forge in the game one. And West Scranton scored 15 points in the last 4 games. Lackawanna Trail had 254 yards rushing against the Mid-Valley defense. That's more than Mid-Valley's first 4 games that they're giving up. But with that said, tongue twister. Not really. Apologize. Mid-Valley is a very good team still. They're very good. They lost to Trail. Trail's very good too. But looking at everything, but let's go over Mid-Valley stats. The leading rusher is Jacob Lusher. He's one of the top running backs in the area. He has 916 yards rushing for 106 yards. He has 8 receptions for 134 yards, so he could catch as well. So he's a weapon. The leading receiver is Connor Hughes, 17 receptions for 188 yards. Brett Inoski has 502 yards passing. He is 45 for 71 and has 3 passing touchdowns. Looking at the stats and their games, past games and all that, definitely going to have to go with Mid-Valley with this one. Mid-Valley, 36, West Scranton 8. Mid-Valley by 28. So Mid-Valley 36, West Scranton 8, Mid-Valley by 28. Some of the scores, the way I pick scores, I just kind of throw numbers out there sometimes because, what is more important to action is how much they win by, right? And who picking the winning team is what matters the most to me. Sometimes I try to get it on where I really think what the score is going to be, but sometimes you can see patterns. But I pick Mid-Valley win by 28. We have 2 more games left. Next game is Valley View versus Scranton. Scranton's rush offense is 419 yards, 83 yards per game. Scranton's pass offense, 388 yards, 77 yards per game. I mean, when we kind of look at the stats, I think their defense kind of won them the first 4 games of the season. Scranton's rush defense, 844 yards, are giving up 168 yards per game. Scranton's pass defense, 597 yards, 119 yards per game. Scranton is coming off a big loss to Scranton. They lost to Prep 43-0. That was very surprising to me. Very surprising. I mean, Scranton's still a good team, but Prep's one of the best teams in the area, and I won't be surprised if they make a run to the state championship this year. Prep's very good. So some stats. Scranton's leading rusher is Reese Whitman. He has 26 carries, 134 yards, 3 touchdowns. He has 9 receptions for 93 yards and 1 touchdown. Next leading rusher is Memphis Shadow, 14 rushing attempts for 129 yards. And then their quarterback, Brody Coyle, who's a very good quarterback, good arm. He has 16 carries for 31 yards. And he has 293 yards passing. So he's 25-41. He has 2 touchdown passes. I would like to see, they have passed the ball, but I think I would like to see them air it out there a bit more. I think, they have fast wide receivers. I definitely think they should start airing out more. I mean, that's just my opinion. So, is what it is. Scranton is still a good team. Anyone when they play Prep, I mean, doesn't really look very good in this area. So they're a good team. Now, Valley View, the rush offense, 880 yards. That's 176 yards per game. And the pass offense, 405 yards, 81 yards per game. Valley View's rush defense, 1,018. That's 203 yards per game. And pass defense is 430 yards, 86 yards per game. And I forgot to mention, Scranton has scored 108 points this year, and that's 21 points per game. Their defense is giving up 69 points, and majority of that is against Prep, which is 43 points. So their defense is pretty good still. I mean, they're a physical team. And then Valley View has scored 107 points this year. That's 21.4 per game. Their defense is giving up 99 points, and that's 19 points per game. Valley View's leading rusher is Nick Karski. No, actually, no. It looks like it's the quarterback. Zach Sawinski, 55 yards, 55 rushing attempts for 328 yards. So 55 rushing attempts for 328 yards. The quarterback, Zach Sawinski. The second leading rusher is Preston Reed, 52 carries, 288 yards, 3 touchdowns. And Zach Sawinski has 5 touchdowns. And their next leading rusher actually is Nick Karski, 39 rushing attempts, 263 yards, 1 touchdown. And their leading wide receiver is the big Beon McLean, 9 catches for 229 yards, 4 touchdown receptions. So there we have it, looking at everything. I'm going with the Cougars from Valley View. So Valley View, 27. Scranton 22. I picked Valley View to win by 5. So Valley View 27, Scranton 22. Valley View win by 5. Our last game is Delaware Valley versus Abington. Delaware Valley is a very good team. I mean, they started off the season with 3 losses, but they also went out of state twice. Then when we returned into play, they played Scranton Prep. They lost 25, and they played Prep very good, hard. And they beat Wallen Park 31-14 last week. So, I mean, Delaware Valley is a very good team still. Delaware Valley's rush offense, 744 yards. That's 148 yards per game. Their rush offense, 699 yards, 139 yards. And Delaware Valley has scored 93 points this year. That's 18.6 points per game. Delaware Valley's pass defense is 644 yards, 128 yards per game. Delaware Valley's pass defense, 544 yards and 108 yards per game. Delaware Valley is giving up 24.4 points per game. That's 122 points per game. Let's just go down to Abington. Abington's rush offense, 635 yards this year, rushing, and that's 127 yards per game. The rush offense, their pass offense, is 657 yards. That's 131 yards per game. Their rush defense is 722 yards they're giving up and 144 yards per game. Abington's pass defense, 456 yards and 91 yards per game. Abington has scored 120 points this year. That's 24 points per game. Abington's is giving up 22.3 points per game, 67 points. Delaware Valley's leading rusher is Mike Iuzano. I can't even pronounce his name. I apologize. So running back, 103 yards, 103 rushing attempts, 562 yards. Mike's a very good running back, and some of his names are hard to say. And definitely hard to say. I apologize. And their second leading rusher is quarterback Logan Alzheimer. 22 rushing attempts for 105 yards. Logan has 644 yards passing. And it's 54 for 104 yards. It's 54 for 104. So he passed the ball a lot. It's a lot of passing. So 54 completions and 104 passing attempts. And he threw 4 interceptions and 644 yards. So Delaware Valley passes the ball a lot. And he has 5 touchdown passes. I don't think it's going to be any different in this game. Abington's a pretty good team. They're turning around their program again. But Delaware Valley is a very good team. So I'm going to go with Delaware Valley to win, 24-13. So I picked Delaware Valley 24, Abington 13, Delaware Valley by 11. Let's go over some of Abington's stats. Their leading rusher is Dominic Virginetti. He has 76 rushing attempts for 337 yards and 2 touchdowns. And their second leading rusher looks to be Nick Bradley, 35 rushing attempts for 192 yards. He's their quarterback. And he is 46 pass completions out of 87 attempts. He has 657 yards passing and 9 touchdown passes. So Nick Bradley looks like he could do it all. And their leading receiver looks to be Sean Theodore, 12 catches for 249 yards for 4 touchdowns. But again, I pick Delaware Valley to win this one, 24-13 by 11. I apologize for name mispronounced mispronouncing names. Apologize for some minor mishaps and different things. I'm kind of new at doing this. I think this is my third week kind of doing it this way. We're a new podcast. We just got started in July. We're trying to work out the ripples or the rough edges, as you know. And we're trying to find what is the best way to do this. Best way to do our Hail Mary show and with the stats and even me taking notes and what's important. So, it takes time with everything. It takes time to get better at it and talking and find what works. So apologize. Like everything else, it takes time to learn and get better and everything else takes practice. So apologize, as time goes on, things are going to be much better, and everything, we're going to find things that work. So I have a system now. So I'm going to be doing the Hail Mary show. So, but yeah, on to week 6. We're going to be at the Dunmore Lakeland game. Dunmore's going up to Chapton Lake, and it should be a very good game. And again, I picked Lakeland to win that one. So it's going to be an exciting Friday night. And with that said, let's bring on Sara again to do a top 7 countdown to end the show.
The Hail Mary Show with the Agape Freedom Sports Podcast. My name is Sara X, here to give you the top 7 countdown for the Lackawanna Football Conference. Starting with number 7, we have Scranton. At number 6, we have Mid-Valley. Number 5, Lackawanna Trail. Number 4, Valley View. Number 3, Riverside. Number 2, Scranton Prep. And number 1, we've got Western Wayne predicted to win. And I'm going to hand you guys on over to Jeric.
Thank you again, Sara. And this is the Agape Freedom Sports Podcast. We cover the Lackawanna Conference, football, and boys basketball and baseball right now, and then cross country. So if you like our content, you love sports, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can stay updated to our latest content and latest podcast releases and all that stuff. So again, I'm Jeric Yurkanin. This is Agape Freedom Sports. Have a good night.